up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking the best and worst movies of the month of May 2019. Now, I have been doing this a certain way. I figured since there is a new trend on YouTube, since I have been taking advantage of that recently, I am going to be doing a tier list of all of the movies that I watched in May. That's right, not every single film that released, of course, but all of the films that I was able to see, I was able to check out. If I did not watch a film that you guys were able to see, let me know in the comments down below. Austin, you should watch this movie or you should stay away from this film. But as always, before we get into the actual ranking of the movies, we're gonna talk statistics because that's what we do here. So the month is May, the year is 2019, and so far this year I have watched 155 movies. According to this, that's an average of 25.8 movies per month, 7 per week, so that's actually pretty good. And I promised you guys that I would try my best to break my previous record, and I believe that's 30 movies in 1 month in 2019, and guess what? I was able to watch 35 this month, counting my first-time watches and rewatches. In terms of 2019 movies, I watched 24 original, brand new movies in the month of May, and those are the movies we are focusing on today. I am going to be placing them in tiers, and I've changed up the tiers a little bit if you want to take a look at this little puppy right here. This is the list we're going to be dealing with. I have awesome, great, good, solid, underwhelming, bad, and awful. You can kind of point that to the S tier and the F tier, however you guys want to do it, but that is what we are doing today. And I would love for you guys to go check this out, do it yourselves, tell me what movies belong in the awesome tier, which movies are awful, bad, etc. And I do have some controversial choices on this list, but hey, it's all personal, no facts here, it is all opinion based. Okay guys, let's rank these and start placing them on their respective lists. And we're just going to go in the order that it is provided, and we start with The Intruder. And we start with one of the worst of the bunch because I am placing this on the awful tier. I believe The Intruder is just an awful movie. Now, it is one of those films that it is so bad that I believe some people are going to have fun with. My audience was laughing. Now, were they laughing for the right reasons? Probably not. And I do think that there was something there with Dennis Quaid's performance. It was very over the top and crazy. If it was a different movie, I think it would have worked. He's absolutely the best part of the film, but everything else was taken so seriously, so ridiculous. That is one of those movies. One of the few this month that I believe is just awful. May got started off on a really bad foot, and we'll get to why here in a bit. But the next movie on this list is actually one that I watched very recently, and that is Ma. And Ma is one of those movies that I had a bit of fun with. You know, I went in with very low expectations, not because I expected something bad, just because, you know, Octavia Spencer, you know she's going to be good, but is the movie surrounding her going to measure up? And I don't think it necessarily measured up, but you know what? I still had a solid time, and that's why it goes on the solid tier, because Ma is one of those films that I think you will have fun with. You may need to not overthink certain elements of the plot and forgive certain characters for making irrational decisions, but without those decisions, we would not have had the third act that we had, and that was a lot of fun. Now, speaking of a lot of fun, love the transitions here. We're talking John Wick Parabellum, John Wick Chapter 3, and I created this awesome tier for a reason. And that reason is John Wick, right? We are putting him, this movie, the third installment of this trilogy, on the awesome tier. This is one of my favorite movies of the year. And when I do my giant, massive tier list at the end of this year, I am really hoping it is still up there with the greats as one of my favorite of the year. That's right, I'm working on that. But right now we're talking about this, and John Wick's it's one of the best movies of the year. It's one of the most fun action movies I've ever seen in a theater. The audience was going crazy. The action was incredible. Yes, but the story for me was also there. I still don't think the story is as strong as the first, but it takes what we love about the first and what we love about the second, and it combined those two things in the third and gave us a fantastic trilogy capper until we watched the fourth movie. Next up is Bash Brothers. That's right, The Lonely Island presents the unauthorized Bash Brothers experience. Now, this is a short film. This is not a long movie. This is more of a series of music videos, but if you love The Lonely Island, if you love what they do and the fun that they give their audience, then you're going to love this special on Netflix, and it is on this list because I logged it on Letterboxd, of course, but it's also on this list because I just had so much fun with it. I couldn't not put it with the other experiences I've had in the theater and on Netflix, and because of that, I'm actually gonna put this on the great tier. I think for fans of The Lonely Island, for fans of baseball, for fans of music videos all clumped together that tell a story, and it really was a short film. I know that's what it's considered, but it just felt like something that I have rarely gotten, and that is unashamed satirical fun, and I had a fantastic time with it. Now, I'm going to pause right here and tell you guys, there are still 3 things that I have not logged on Letterboxd. I'm kind of backed up for the weekend, right? I watched those 2 series, Good Omens, and When They See Us. I know they're both limited series, but they are available to review on Letterboxd, so those 2 things are coming, which will bump up what I actually watched for the month. And then another movie we're going to talk about on here, that is the Deadwood movie. I haven't been able to log that, so technically all of the numbers that I mentioned before, they should go up by 1. Okay, back to this. We're talking the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Batman, and this is something that I had anticipation for because it's just, the entire concept of it was great, but I didn't think it would be that good of a movie. Well, guess what? It was a good movie, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm putting it on the good tier. Listen, if you love Batman, especially if you love the throwback, still dark, but less dark Batman, with the concept of him meeting up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Robin and Batgirl and the entire gang going on an adventure. And if you want to hear Batman say pizza time, you want to watch this movie, man. It was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to actually go back and revisit that with my brother very soon. Next up is Brightburn, and Brightburn was a movie I had very high anticipation for. I wanted it to be on this great, awesome tier, and I don't think it's on the great, awesome tier. I'm going to place it on the solid tier because it was solid. It was exactly what I expected. Nothing more, really nothing less. They pushed the violence, and I loved that. Feeling James Gunn's touch all over this thing was great, but then you had kind of a conventional story, one that's not as memorable as I wanted it to be, and something that does set up a great universe in the future, but just didn't execute on every level like I wanted it to. Overall, solid movie, and we move on to A Dog's Journey. Now, I just got a new dog, so this is kind of resonating with me right now, but the movie itself is underwhelming. Now, underwhelming for this film is not as bad as it is for other movies, because all of the other A Dog's Purpose, A Dog's Way Home, those movies would be on lower tiers. But A Dog's Journey is the best version of that style of movie that we have seen in quite some time, even though it's underwhelming. So technically it's not underwhelming. It was actually better than I thought it was going to be, but for the sake of the tiers and putting it where I think it belongs score-wise, I'm putting it in the underwhelming tier because I don't think it's a bad movie. We move on to Always Be My Maybe. This is the brand new Netflix movie that I just watched this weekend, and you know what? I thought this was great. Spoilers, we're putting it in the great tier, one of the best Netflix movies of the year. This is a romantic comedy that doesn't break any new ground. It doesn't necessarily do things that we haven't seen before, but it's so charming, delightful, funny, well-directed. It is just everything you want. It is the proper package in terms of a Netflix rom-com. It's the best in the adult genre that I have seen on Netflix. Absolutely. And the Keanu Reeves cameo, well, I guess role in the movie was awesome. Stick around for that. And we move on to Rim of the World. Now, I guess I was one of the few people that actually didn't mind Rim of the World, right? There were so many people that hated on this movie. They're like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. I'm like, no. Especially when you look at the director in McG, when he's bad. He's a bad director. He never really delivered on a movie, and he didn't necessarily knock this one out of the park. It still is, I'll show you where it is here in just a second, but it is better than his other movies, and there's a bit of fun to be had. I think it works for the age group that it's appealing towards, and some of the dialogue works compared to his other films. That being said, I'm still putting it on the underwhelming tier because it is overall an underwhelming movie for my age group. For the proper age group that is going to watch this movie, the target audience, I think they'll enjoy it. They'll have fun with it. And I did have a bit of fun, even though the movie as a whole, when looking at that genre, especially when you compare it to other coming-of-age things like It and Stranger Things, it's not even close to that. And that, for me, is why it's underwhelming. Next up, we have The Wandering Earth. This is the Chinese blockbuster that came out and broke almost every single record in China, and then released in the United States on Netflix a bit later, about the middle of May, and I watched it a week late because I realized, oh my gosh, literally everyone and their grandma is watching this movie, and I can see how you watch this and say, you know what? It's another cliche, post-apocalyptic, Armageddon-style movie. It's the end of the world, big graphics, but China has really come a long way compared to their other blockbusters of this nature. This actually tried to give us a good story, tried to give us good characters. It has done things that a Chinese blockbuster has never, that I have seen, tried before, and I appreciate that. I respect that. I had a really solid time with it, and because of that, I'm putting it on the solid tier, even though when you're comparing it to other Western, aka in the United States, movies of that vein, they all feel a bit similar, but the fact that this came from China, you have to appreciate and respect what they did, and the visuals are crazy. Watch this on the biggest TV possible with surround sound. Now we have Booksmart, and Booksmart is another movie that I reviewed a few weeks ago. I reviewed a bit early, but I want to go back and revisit it very soon because the movie is just awesome. It is in my top 10 of the year so far. It is one of my favorite movies of the year. I love it. I love it so much. I love it the more that I think about it. I had such a good time in the theater. It is a phenomenal coming-of-age story. Great characters, great writing, great directing. Olivia Wilde, I want to see her do more. Don't care what it is. Give me more from her. What a great director. What a great movie. And Booksmart is right up there with John Wick for me. Both of those movies belong on the awesome tier. Next up, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. And I have to say, guys, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Mostly because of Zac Efron's performance. Listen, the movie is not going down this action-packed path that is exploring the violent tendencies of Ted Bundy. No, it's showing his good side. It's showing what she saw in him throughout her entire life. That's the way that the audience gets to see Ted Bundy in this movie. It's a very different route to travel down, and a lot of people did not like it because of that. A lot of people just wanted Ted Bundy, the movie, the crazy side of Ted Bundy. We didn't see that. We saw the other side. We can get another movie in the future of that side that everyone wanted to see, but the fact that we got what we got with a great performance by Zac Efron, I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a good movie, and that's why I'm putting it on the good tier. Next up, another movie, and I'm going to go ahead and place it there, that I think is good, and that's Aladdin. And I'm seeing a lot of people that do not think Aladdin is good. Some people that I work with told me, Austin, you liked Aladdin? I'm like, yeah, I liked Aladdin. I had a lot of fun with it. And I'm one of the guys that was walking into the theater, rolling my eyes, saying, this movie is just, it's going to be another Dumbo. It's going to be another Disney live-action movie that tries to do too much, doesn't try to capture the original in its own spiritual way, and doing it in the right way, and honoring Robin Williams the way that Will Smith should, but he's probably not going to do. No, it did all of those things. It had a nice balance of old and new. Will Smith was the best part of the movie. He was just the best. He honored Robin Williams, but he did his own thing. His songs were so entertaining. Listen, Guy Ritchie's film style maybe wasn't the perfect film style for this film, and every now and then he rears his little head a bit too much, and it did not fit. And I don't think he's a very good musical director, but he's a good director, and he knew how to handle these characters from an emotional standpoint. The music videos, they didn't look the best that I've seen this year, but they were still really good, thoroughly entertaining. I loved the music, and I loved the genie. Also, the relationship was explored a bit more, and I liked that as well. Overall, not the best movie I've ever seen, but it's a good movie. It's a lot better than a lot of people were going to give it credit for in the first place, but after seeing it, I think a lot of people had fun with it, even though there's still that minority that said, hey, we didn't like the movie, and that's completely understandable. Next up is Long Shot. Now, this was early in May when I was able to see this, and it's one of those films that I had anticipation for, but I didn't know if Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen could make for a convincing couple. But guess what? They absolutely did, and I think this is another, right next to Always Be My Maybe, romantic comedy that's great. I thought this was thoroughly enjoyable. It mixes the kind of stoner, over-the-top, exaggerated humor that Seth Rogen comes with, like the Neighbor-style humor, but then it starts to even itself out as you go through the movie and develop into this nice, still funny, but nice love story. It throws in the political aspects but doesn't shove them too far in your face, and it just has a nice balance of everything, and it's different. It's a romantic comedy that I haven't seen before. It does those things that you want it to do, and because of that, I had a great time with it. Long Shot was a lot of fun. A movie that is fun, but in all the weird ways, is the perfection. I say in all the weird ways, and it was weird. It was a very weird movie, but weird in a good way. I really like this movie. One of the better Netflix films I have seen this year. Does it execute on every single thing? No. Does every twist work? No. Does some of the filmmaking get in the way of what it could have been? Yes. But all of those things are very minor because the story and the acting, especially by Allison Williams, was all there, and it was all thoroughly enjoyable, and just twist after turn after twist, and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing on screen. Not everyone's going to like it. It's not a movie that everyone is going to respond to the way that I did, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought it was a good movie, especially on Netflix. Now we get to the other one, the one that I said was going to pop up, and it was another film that I think I actually watched the same day as The Intruder, and it's funny because it goes on the same tier as The Intruder. May got off to a bad start, folks. It slowly turned its head around, and it actually ended up being, I think, the best month of the year so far in terms of great and awesome movies, quality films. But my goodness, Ugly Dolls was just that animated movie that you expect it to be, but you don't want it to be. I'm not going to put it all the way down there with the Emoji Movie, but it's very close. It did not try. It was not charming. It was clearly just pop stars wanting to get a paycheck and throwing their voices into characters that you just don't care about. Now, I have seen some people that liked this movie, and that's okay. That's fine. I just didn't respond to it. I think animated movies are supposed to be smarter than this. Ugly Doll wasn't smart. Another movie that wasn't smart, and it's just bad, is The Hustle. The Hustle's not good either. I think The Hustle did what Booksmart executed on perfectly, just did it in a bad way. Rebel Wilson and Anne Hathaway are great actors. They're funny in their own rights, and they're very talented. But they brought that talent, and they just kind of went through the motions of this film and succumbed to a bad script and a bad direction that took this movie in places that, frankly, I didn't want it to go, highlighted over extremely important plot points, and then just gave us a flat-out boring and unfunny film. Listen, I'm not going to say it's awful because there were some entertaining elements, and you may enjoy it just because of Rebel Wilson and Anne Hathaway, so I'm not quite down there, but it's very close. It's bad. Don't watch it unless you want to, sure. Next up is The Last Summer. And The Last Summer is a movie on Netflix that I thought would be in the bad or awful tier, and it's not. It's down there. It's underwhelming, I will say that. But this underwhelming tier, I may have to think of another name for it because the movies that are in this didn't necessarily underwhelm me because I wasn't anticipating them, just in the grand scheme of things, thinking back on them in terms of quality, they're underwhelming because they just don't quite measure up to the movies that are on the good side of things. Listen, The Last Summer, it had its chances, it really did. I liked some of the characters. I actually thought some of the story elements were quite nice, and the direction wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I would say it was actually better, once again, than I thought it was going to be. That underwhelming tier, I think, is where it belongs in terms of quality. Now we come to Rocket Man, and Rocket Man is another movie that I knew would be good. I just didn't know how good. But Taron Egerton took me on a journey, never let me escape from that journey until the very end of the movie, and I think this is a great film. And actually, the more I think about Rocket Man, the more I like it. I want to go see it again just to see how my score stacks up. I might go even higher. The first 20 minutes of the movie, didn't know if I loved the musical direction, but once Taron Egerton comes on screen, he steals the entire film and brings it to a level that the film never came down from, and because of that, I think it goes on the great tier. Guys, I'm running out of time. I gotta mow through these. Next up is Detective Pikachu. We are going to put this on the good tier because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a good time with Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. Never thought I'd say that. And then I just had a good time with this movie. The plot, the direction, where we ended up, and seeing all of the little hints and the Easter eggs of the Pokemon. Listen, if you're not a Pokemon lover, I don't know how much you love this movie, but if you love Pokemon, you at least had a good time seeing this on screen. Is the plot the best? No. Was the acting the best? No. Justice Smith, he was a bit off for me at times, but I still really bought their relationship, he and Pikachu, and I had a really good time with this movie. See You Yesterday is the next movie we are talking about. This is a Netflix original film. This is one that I thought looked very cheesy and corny. Hey, I have an email. It looked corny, and at the end of the day, I still think the movie was a bit corny, a bit over the top, and at times, the time travel in the movie kind of reminded me of a Disney Channel original movie, but there's also this story happening in the background, these themes that this kind of movie has never really hit on this hard before. It tackles racism, it tackles death, it tackles maturity, and all of those things come together at the end of the day to make for an entertaining film. Is this a great movie? No, but I do think teens and people who are just looking for a good time on Netflix will enjoy it. And there's a cameo at the beginning of this. Look at the words time travel and try to guess what it is. It was fantastic, and I love that, but I think the movie is solid. Next up, Wine Country. I wanted Wine Country to at least be on the solid tier. I'm not putting it that high. I'm putting it on the underwhelming tier because I think this movie was just underwhelming. You have this cast, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey. I mean, just it is so stacked in terms of comedy. And the first 15 minutes, they were really funny. Then you get into the story, and I got a little bit bored. I have to be honest with you. This is just a boring movie. It's nothing to look at, nothing to sneeze at. It's just something you're going to watch. You're going to be like, oh, that's fun. And then 30 minutes in, you're going to start washing dishes and forget you were even watching it in the first place. That's just my opinion. I didn't love this movie as much as I wanted to, but I did like the direction by Amy Poehler. That's one thing that I want to see what she does next. Just give me a better script and a better story. Then we have Deadwood, the movie, and this is actually one that I haven't logged on Letterboxd yet, so it didn't really show up any of the stats. This was a great movie if you're a fan of Deadwood, the show. If you have never watched the show, then I don't necessarily know if you are going to love this, but if you have watched the show and you are a fan of these characters, and if you just like a nice Western, it does kind of feel like a television movie, and it does kind of feel like just a finale episode, just a long one to this TV show, but as a fan of Deadwood, I like that. Therefore, I like the movie, but I didn't just like it. I thought this was a great movie for Deadwood fans. I'm just going to encourage you guys to watch the series before you watch the movie because the attachment to the characters going in is important in the same vein as Avengers Endgame going in after seeing all of the movies or most of the movies. It's that kind of relationship we are talking about, and we're saving Godzilla for last. Listen, I get it. I saw the comments on my video. I realized a lot of people thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I understand that. Listen, the monster battles in this movie were great. The action was awesome. The CGI was flawless. On a technical level, this movie is a 10 out of 10. And then you look at the human story, and everybody's telling me, Austin, the movie's not supposed to be about the humans. As long as I get the awesome monster-on-monster action, that's what I'm here for, and I understand that. My big issue was the movie didn't focus on that. The movie is clearly about the humans. It's about the human story. And they take up like 65-70% of the screen time. You don't even get your first monster until like 25 minutes into the movie. You don't get your second monster until like 45 minutes into the movie. You rarely see Godzilla until the end. In a way, it reminded me of the 2014 Godzilla movie, except I was more interested in that story than I was this story because the direction was far superior in that movie. I think this direction was sloppy. I think scale-wise, didn't work as well as I wanted it to. Entertainment-wise, in the third act, I was freaking out. I'm sitting there cheering on the monsters. It's like a giant boxing match. I was loving it, but every time they would get to this part that I'm like, oh yeah, this is great, I'm in the moment, and then they would just cut back to the humans. And that's not gonna bother a lot of people, especially if you like that storyline. I didn't like the storyline. I did not like the direction. I didn't like the script. I didn't like any of that. I didn't like the reason why they unleashed the monsters in the first place. None of that worked for me. And because of that, it overshadowed the fact that the movie is a good Godzilla movie. But when it's not focusing on Godzilla, it didn't work. Sorry I had to go on that spiel. I just wanted to explain myself for why I didn't love this movie. I still don't think it's a bad movie, but because of what I just said, I'm going to do the most controversial thing I've done in this video, and I'm putting it on the underwhelming tier. But I truly hope you guys understand why I'm doing that. Don't just think I'm hating on this movie because I hate Godzilla. No, I love Godzilla. And this is still probably my favorite iteration of Godzilla. Honestly, I think this Godzilla looks awesome. The story behind this Godzilla is great. I just wanted a better movie. That being said, still excited for the next film in the franchise. So guys, long video. This was massive. I cannot believe I tackled this. If you like this idea and you would rather me do this instead of just the best and the worst of May, it's a much longer video. It's much more in-depth. It takes a while to get through, and I'm sorry for that. But this was a lot of fun, man. I need you guys in the comments. Let me know which movies did you love, which movies did you hate, all of the in-between. Thank you so much for watching this. Later today, you may be seeing another Netflix review. I haven't slept this. I am so tired. I'm going to go take a nap. That's what I need to do, but I truly appreciate you guys and all of your comments, taking the time, spending it with me in this video, and I'll see you very soon.